At the start of the movie, a woman is heard breaking up with her timid husband of 12 years, architect David. She then goes on to confirm David's fear that her new partner wears glasses just like David does and urges him to hurry up and catch the ride to the hotel. Another woman starts to narrate the story as David takes his brother turned dog named Bob and catches the bus to the hotel. At the hotel, he's asked several personal questions which are used to complete his profile. He's told that he can only stay there for 45 days and allocate one of the single rooms. He also learns that he can only participate in single sports like squash and golf and should avoid team sports like tennis and volleyball as they're only for couples. He understands that if everything goes well and he makes it through the process having found a partner, he'll be moved to the double rooms and then to a yacht for a couple more weeks and then be released back into the city. He's then taken to the next room where he and the other guests are stripped of their personal belongings and given identical generic items of clothing, shoes, and everything else that they may require. Finished with his vetting, he's led to his room by the hotel staff, and there he notices a tranquilizer gun hanging above the wall with tranquilizer darts laid out for it. He then looks out the window to see the unconscious bodies of captured loners laid out on the ground with the hunter standing right behind their prey, getting rewarded with days added to stay in the hotel according to the number of prey.
Wait, hold on. Did you subscribe to our channel? Come on guys, you're here, you're watching the video, help us out by hitting the subscribe button as it really helps out me and my team to make more videos for you guys. And now, let's get back to the recap.
Then, the hotel manager, accompanied by her partner, the maid, and a butler, enter his room to welcome him. The manager goes on to say that he shouldn't be discouraged by the fact that he'll be turned into an animal if he fails to fall in love with someone during his stay at the hotel. And when asked to choose an animal to be turned into if he fails to find a partner, he chooses to become a lobster. So anyways, the hotel manager congratulates his unusual choice, implying that there are far too many dogs in the world, as people always end up choosing to be a dog cause, you know, a lot of people take care of their dogs. She then has his hand handcuffed to his belt at his back for 24 hours, just to remind him that two of something's actually better than one. We then see him having some difficulties navigating routine activities for the rest of the day. The next morning, he's awakened for breakfast by an alarm that also reminds him that he only has 44 days left. He then goes to the breakfast hall with his hand still handcuffed behind his back. He sits down and surveys his fellow guests, and right in front of his table sat a girl nursing a nosebleed, and next to her sat her blonde best friend, and on his left was a woman holding butter biscuits, and behind him sat a very heartless woman. Then a man with a limp named John introduces himself and his best friend with a lisp named Robert to David and asks if he wants to join them for a walk. He accepts and they go around the compound getting to know each other, and later a classy dinner party is organized where the guests can dance together and get to know one another while being entertained by the hotel manager and her partner. Then at the end of the song, an alarm blares reminding the guests to leave the building in an orderly fashion so they can get to the woods and start hunting for loners. And by loners, I mean people who've escaped from the hotel to the woods and are against companionship. In the woods, everyone tries their best to try and capture some loners so they can be awarded extra days for their stay in the hotel, and chaos ensues in the woods as the loners try to flee and the guests try to take them down using their tranquilizer guns. David almost hits a loner but doesn't follow through and lets him go, and once done with the hunting, they return to the hotel to have their prey counted and converted to rewards. The heartless woman, being the best hunter in the hotel, gets the most days added and is left with 5+ months left of stay, which means she can stay that long trying to make a connection before she can be turned into an animal. A few days later, one morning after breakfast, the guests are gathered around the meeting hall and are shown different scenarios in an attempt to brainwash them about the difficulties of being alone and need for companionships by the maid and bustlers. One night, as they're heading to the hunt in their bus, David sits next to the butler biscuit lady, who tries to strike up a conversation and offers to know him intimately and sends his dog Bob some biscuits. But he didn't share her excitement and politely declines, leading her to threaten to kill herself if she doesn't find a suitable partner soon. Back at the hotel, John approaches Nosebleed Girl, faking a nosebleed of his own and insinuating its usual occurrence. And John and Nosebleed Girl are announced as a couple at dinner that night, and their suitability for one another is confirmed by their shared nosebleeding problems, and the hotel manager announces that they'll be transferred to a larger double room for 2 weeks and then to yachts for further 2 weeks to see how they accommodate, and is hopeful that they can return to the city as a couple. She adds that if they encounter problems and arguments that they can't solve by themselves in these coming weeks, children will be assigned to them, as that usually helps. David has a week left, so he approaches a blonde girl, and after some awkward conversation, he realizes that it's not going to work out. Blonde Girl and her best friend Nosebleed Girl are called to the hotel manager's office to discuss what the blonde girl wants to do on her last day as a human, as she has failed to find a partner in her allocated time. The hotel manager advises her to choose something that she can't do as an animal, and she chooses to watch the movie Stand By Me alone. And later, a Nosebleed Girl is seen saying goodbye to a pony. Butter Biscuit Lady calls David hoping to hang out with him, but he ignores her call and convinces himself to go for the Heartless Woman and tries to come up with several ways of approaching her. And then we see the Butter Biscuit Lady throwing herself off the building, but she doesn't die, she just screams from a lot of pain. David uses this opportunity to show the Heartless Woman just how dark he can be, and goes to her and comments how he hopes that the Butter Biscuit Lady dies a slow, painful death, and completely unmoved by her surrounding, the Heartless Woman offers to talk to them some other time when it's quieter. Later, David joins Heartless Woman in the hot tub, where she tests him to see his reaction by faking choking on an olive. When he doesn't attempt to help her, she's convinced that they're a match, and they're given the key to a double room, and they start to live their lives there. David keeps doing insensitive and dark things to keep the Heartless Woman convinced, and one morning, as David wakes up, Heartless Woman, half covered in blood, informs him that she's killed his brother, Bob. He tries to feign carelessness, but then she catches him crying and they get into a fight. She decides that they must go to the hotel manager and confess so that he can be punished by being turned into an animal that no one wants to be, and on their way to confess, he frees himself from her grip and escapes. She chases after him, but with the help of the maid, he shoots her with a tranquilizer, and he fights his urges to kill her and transports her to the transformation room and turns her into an animal. And that night, he leaves the hotel once and for all, never looking back, and runs to the woods. He sleeps there under a tree and is found by a loner man he let go during his hunt the other night, who's the second in command, who takes him to the leader of the loners, and the leader welcomes him and tells him that there's no time limit on his lonership, but warns that sexual relationships between loners are prohibited and punishable. The loners are required to dig their graves and do some survival drills where they practice evading capture. The guests from the hotel go hunting in the woods, chaperoned by the maid and butlers, and the guests raid the woods, and Robert finds David attempting to shoot him as he only has 2 days left. While David distracts him with a conversation, another loner comes and hits him with a rock, allowing David to tranquilize him, and she then makes him promise to never tell anyone that she helped him, and suggests to bring her a rabbit he hunted if he wants to thank her. The maid excuses herself to enter the woods, and is seen conversing with the leader and giving her items including a gun and keys to the hotel rooms and lists of the occupants. The maid then adds that this will be her last mission, and that she couldn't live in that horrible hotel anymore, to which the leader responds by telling her that once they accomplish the big night that they got planned at the hotel, she can come join them. David goes around the woods hunting for rabbits and brings them to the loner lady as she was sleeping, and the next day, David, the loner lady, the leader, and the second in command go to the city posing as married couples. They do this because people are expected to have marriage licenses to roam freely in the city, and they went there for a special mission of buying and stocking up medications and other necessary items for their survival, during which David learns that loner lady is also short-sighted and astigmatic just like him. They then safely make it back to the woods, and David and loner lady start spending time together, and they also get to know one another. As the leader gathers some of the loners and gives them a list of the existing couples in the hotel for their mission, David volunteers to take on John and Nosebleed Girl in the yacht. The loners go on the hotel dressed like the guests after dark, and David enters the yacht, interrupting John's family's dinner with his partner Nosebleed Girl and their assigned daughter, and reveals that John fakes his nosebleeds, irritating John into throwing him out. The leader and second in command and loner lady go to the hotel manager's room and tie her up and interrogate her partner about their relationship and order him to shoot her. He complies and starts to, but is horrified to learn that the gun is not loaded and that the loners were just playing a psychological game to ruin their relationship. The hotel manager is furious and starts yelling for them to leave, and they comply, leaving them to pick up the pieces of their relationship. And once they ruin the couple's relationship, the loners go back to the woods and celebrate by dancing individually to no song. The leader reminds David to get on digging his grave as soon as possible, and the next morning, as the maid tells David how she attacked her partner before she left the hotel, David is distracted by seeing loner lady accept a rabbit from someone else. He then goes over to tell her that she doesn't need to be indebted to anyone else and to just talk to him whenever she needs rabbit, and he then tracks the man down and assaults him to confirm that he's not short-sighted. Then David and loner lady do a synchronization exercise and end up kissing. They then start a secret relationship, and they even make up secret gestures so they can communicate how much they loved each other in public and warn one another of possible danger, to the point where they can talk about almost anything without opening their mouths. The couple then decide to leave the woods and live together in the city, and they decide to make a break for it the next day when the hotel guests come to hunt in the woods so that everyone will assume that they've been captured. The maid, together with the leader, find and read loner lady's diary, where she wrote about her secret relationship, and they discover everything that she's been doing. Furious, this, the leader takes David to a very quiet place and has him dig his grave, and she then orders him to go inside and pour dirt all over himself. She then takes Loner Lady to the hospital with the disguise of correcting her short-sightedness with surgery and has her blinded. Back in the woods, when Loner Lady discovers what the leader has done and threatens to attack her with a knife, the leader puts the maid in her place and the maid is stabbed and killed in the ordeal. After hesitating a bit, Loner Lady tells David what happened, and even though David was saddened, they keep spending time together, and David tries to find other defining characteristics that could link them and make them compatible, like favorite things and skills. He also keeps training her and helping her identify items. After a few days, David comes up with an idea and describes it to her in their code, and she agrees and they decide to leave the city the next day. David then attacks the leader and throws her in his grave, and he then helps Loner Lady navigate the terrain on their way to the city, and they safely make it to the city and go to a restaurant. They sit there for a bit while he tries to memorize details about her, and then as she waits for him, he takes a steak knife to the bathroom and then proceeds to take his eyes out just to have a similar defining characteristic. And that is how the movie comes to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed the recap. Make sure to leave me a like, leave a comment, also sub to my channel. I love you guys so much and I promise to see you on my next recap. Bye.